Good evening, everyone. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the notice requirements are satisfied. Meeting dates for the year are confirmed at the annual meeting, are posted on the public bulletin board in the lobby of the Municipal Center and published in the record within the first 10 days of the new year. I just want to note that I believe when we finish our work session, before we go inside, we're going to have a very brief closed session. It shouldn't take too long, but that's in between the two meetings. So our first item on to be considered is the borough telephone system upgrade.
Then we should have a change in the agenda.
I just announced that.
Okay, well, but...
It's not on the public meeting, it's just for the work session.
Okay, so, Jewel, you want to
Sure.
take the lead on this, please?
You had, this is under to be considered, and you have a memo in your packages. We have the team from the Board of Education, which is led by Yasu Sami, the business administrator. As you know, we are working in conjunction with the Board of Education to upgrade our telephone system to switch from the old-fashioned analog system we have to voice over IP. We have gone through the bid process. We have provided you with the information about the successful bidder. The Board of Education awarded the contract to Eastern Datacom at their meeting on April 5th. We are anticipated, that basically serves as the master contract. We're anticipated to award our portion of the contract at the meeting on May 10th. And essentially the mayor and council requested to have an opportunity to speak a little further with the board representatives. We do have the technical consultant here that works with the board and the borough, as well as a representative from Eastern Datacom. So, where did Yaz?
I'm right here.
Oh, okay.
I also have Bob.
No, I wanted you to introduce your team.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Bob Caputo is our technology coordinator. And then I believe Al Harnett is from Eastern Datacom. And that's the short telephone system. Paul Sabella is from TM Technology Partners. He is our consultant and your consultant. So I don't know what the form is as far
If you
as
could just give us a quick update. I think one of the issues is timing and scheduling. We know that the board had a very tight time frame and wanted to get the process initiated. I believe that one of our council people had some questions, some further questions about the functionality, although I've provided a complete set of the bid specifications. So how are you planning to proceed at this point?
I'll let, as far as the technical things, functionality, I'll let the experts take that side.
I could probably answer the technical questions. I'm Al Harnish with Eastern Datacom. The product is SureTel. So I'm the president of the company. I'm not the most technical guy in the company, but I can probably answer the majority of your
Sure.
questions.
Well, you know, how do I proceed? I have the question. I'm the council person with the questions. But, you know, you want to talk about the schedule, or you want me to start quick questions about...
Well, I think we're here because you had questions, so why don't you start the questions?
So why don't we start this one? I looked through these specifications over here, and I need to ask a few questions. In the Tenafly High School, you basically have two edge switches of 48 ports. One at the Tenafly High School and 24 ports at the Stillman School. Altogether, you have 720 stations for this 48, 48, and 24. For the borough of Tenafly, you have 5 48 switches plus a 24 port switch, which is 2 times as much as the high school number of switches, and the number of station is 170, less than a third of the total number of telephones versus the high school. So twice as much switching equipment for a third of the number of equipment. So that's something that is really...
The beauty of the bid process is those are the numbers that were in the bid, and Bob, I think, can answer those questions.
Yeah, I can answer
Yeah.
those questions on the switches for you. The reason why they're so skewed is because we already did an upgrade on our network a few years back, that upgrade lets us support all these phones. Those are just a few switches here and there that we're adding to our existing network.
Mhm.
That we didn't have enough ports.
Okay.
So that's why
Now,
there's so
And
many.
and the borough doesn't have any of the
Oh, wait.
latest switching technology, so we specified basically all brand new power Ethernet capable switching to support all the phones throughout the borough.
So for the borough, we have it's almost one-to-one switching ports versus telephones,
Correct.
which is a very powerful.
So you're getting a brand new network as a result of the phone system upgrade as well,
But
essentially.
let me just finish that. What this one says is it's not only that it's non-blocking, but it's basically having a number of inputs almost equal with the number of sets,
No,
which is extremely unusual for anything. Yeah.
So what you're talking about is a traditional phone system, when you start talking about non-blocking and the ability to have everybody on a phone call at once. So what the switches we're talking about are Ethernet switches.
I'm fully aware of that.
Okay, so telephones have to plug into the Ethernet switch. If you have 100 Ethernet telephones, IP telephones, which, whatever, I forget exactly what the
Right.
number is, but every telephone must plug into an Ethernet switch.
So you provide a port for each one of the telephones.
Yeah, and there's no other way to do it. You can't have a telephone that doesn't plug in a
Here's
port,
the
and you
next
can't share
question that
ports
comes
either.
with that. We will have two switches in the building here. One at the police department, one is the administrative library, one at DPW, which are, there is nothing in the RFP that would basically make the switches redundant. And if the switch at the police department fails, I would have expected that you connect them via some gigi or so you can start doing some redundancy between those switches, because we cannot afford a police department specifically to have a failure if the switch fails. I could not read in the entire RFP anything about redundancy.
So there's two levels of redundancy. One is a redundancy with the phone system, and I think specifically what you're asking about is redundancy with the Ethernet switches.
Exactly.
Which are not part of the phone system. So I'm going to let Bob talk about the Ethernet switches, and I'll answer the one about the telephone system.
Yeah, the Ethernet switches, it's kind of hard, especially with plugging a phone in like your computer, to have any kind of redundancy because you're hardwired to there. I talked to the chief about this as well, on how things are done now, and because it was one of my concerns as well. And he says there's a lot of things in place currently for redundancy, because if the system goes down now, I was asking him, what happens?
Yeah, but the question is, you're going to replace all that with these ones. So how are these going to be redundant? Versus what the police chief is saying, because he basically he has a hunting session on all the ports, and they hunt. So if one goes down, the other goes over, and stuff like that. The question is now, when we have new switches, the old ones go away. How do we make sure that we have redundancy? We have 4 or 5 switches over here. How do we make sure we're redundant between them? Do we have anything that's important for us?
Well, in the stacking of the switch, there's redundancy. So if there's more than 2 switches, there's redundancy in the stack itself.
Okay, it's nothing in the RFP, that's why I'm asking, because I
Yeah.
specifically looked at that.
Right, but as far as an individual phone, the phone is going to be plugged into an individual switch. If that switch goes down, then that phone's going to be down.
And we're not worried about so much, we worry about the incoming calls being able to be coming into a hunting sequence with the PRIs that are coming in the main.
Right.
And he has also like 6 specific DIDs station lines. So we want to make sure, I didn't see anything over here to
The HUD
ensure.
groups stay the same.
Yeah, so that
and we
part-
could have multiple phones ring with
So not to confuse everybody, but when
Yeah.
we talk about switches, there's Ethernet switches, and then there's the telephone switches. So I'm gonna on the telephone side, I'm gonna use the term appliance, not
Okay,
switch, just
whatever
so
you
we don't
want.
get confused. So the telephone appliances are 100% redundant. So what happens is there's a piece of equipment that all the telephones in, let's say, this building associate to. This short telephone.
Where is that going to be located?
It's going to be in here. It's going to be in the
So it's a distributed architecture.
It's
Each one of the buildings
Okay.
has their own.
Okay, so it's gonna be a
Well,
distributed, okay, so that, I couldn't see anything like that in here. so
Well, that's
fine.
because different manufacturers do it different ways. So this is the way ShoreTel, which is the successful product.
Okay.
doesn't. So the telephones in this building associate to this appliance. If this appliance fails, the telephones go, uh-oh, the appliance I associate to failed.
Yeah.
I know there's a spare, let me reassociate to the spare.
And where is the spare?
And I think the
gonna
way
be?
we have the spare set up is in the high school.
Okay, and do we have some sort of a duplicate connection between this one here and the high school? So we know that somebody cannot just cut one cable and cut both legs? Because we need separate conduit to make sure that specifically for the police and EMT, you cannot have a single point of failure.
Yeah, the connection back to the high school was over fiber optic cable back to the data center.
Yeah.
And then your circuits that come in that communicate to the outside world come over a different set of facilities.
Yeah, I understand
So
that.
one single cut wire would not result in a
No,
complete
my question
failure.
was the communication between the switch and the high school or whatever. Is there redundant in separate conduits? So we don't have one conduit cut, basically destroying the redundancy.
Bob, do you have diversity in your fiber routing back to the? I
Yeah, there's a
believe
single
so.
fiber strand that
Yeah.
goes between buildings.
Would you please look at that so we know that we don't get a single point of failure?
Bob, you're our director of technology.
Yeah,
You've gone over this with the police chief?
yes.
Okay. You are satisfied that the system is, nothing is totally fail-safe, but
Right.
you're satisfied that the system has enough redundancy in it that we're not gonna be caught in a bad position?
Yes, it was a concern I had, so I had the conversation with the chief, and we talked it out, and we both actually felt, that it was a good thing to do.
Okay. Max, have they pretty much satisfied your?
See, let me say, and I don't want to be in a way rude or anything like that. You can have a lot of people being satisfied, but when you get to an expert or so, you need to understand the details to make sure that besides the satisfaction we're satisfied, actually the steps were taken.
Well, that's why I asked the expert.
Yeah, well, that's why we discussed, and they said, no, it's only one conduit between the two of them. And even though you might say that's one that can, I don't think that it's the optimum solution.
I might give you a better solution. So are the PRIs for the borough located here?
The PR for the boroughs are coming in here, yes.
Okay, so if it made sense, and I don't want to,
Yes,
create
that makes
extra-
sense what you want, to switch them on.
No, so if the borough wanted to buy one additional appliance for approximately $2,000 and put it in this building,
Yes.
which was not part of the bid, but for roughly $2,000 and put it in this building,
Yeah.
now the connection to the high school means nothing.
That,
So
I would be
that
very
conduit gets-
satisfied with that.
If it gets ripped up by
Okay,
a
well,
backhoe.
there's 7 of us, we'll talk about it.
But I'm saying,
But
I
it
know
can
there
be
are
done.
7
It's
people.
only, it was limited by the way the bid was written, but that
Yeah.
certainly can be
Okay.
done. And that way, if a backhoe rips up the fiber to the high school,
Yes,
you're on the phone, even if a switch fails and you're not connected to the high school, you'll still get out and be able to make it
that's
receive
my
phone.
exact, my concern.
Okay.
So it's very possible, we can do it that way.
Okay.
All right, so,
Let-
Bob, you understand his concern?
Yes.
Okay, so I think the next step is I'd like you to make a recommendation to Jewel as to whether or not you think we should make that expenditure of $2,000 or not, because the $2,000 is $2,000, and we'll take your recommendation under consideration. Okay, Dan, you had something.
He answered it.
I'm sorry?
He answered it in the secondary
Yeah,
way.
I have more questions about. I looked at the actual backup for the batteries you have, and for the police department and the EMT over here, basically you have like something like 30 minutes or so. 30 minutes for a backup for the police department. Basically, what you're saying in that is that if we have a failure of both the power and the generator, we have a backup for 30 minutes. 30 minutes is not enough for an EMT police to restore both the backup and the generator. So what alternatives we have besides the 30 minutes to make sure that, say, the police department and the EMT operate when case of a failure for more like 5 hours or so, enough for us to restore the main track.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make a comment, but I'll let you answer this one too, because, again, we responded to what the
understand.
requirement was in the bid. But the general intent is a UPS should provide a couple of minutes worth of backup until the generator comes up.
Yeah.
And then the generator takes over. That's generally what the UPS does.
Okay.
But I don't know if you want to add more what was.
Yeah, that was the intent of the UPS, was to provide clean power to the equipment
Yeah.
and to basically hold the load until the generator was online.
Our
Yeah.
generator comes up immediately.
Yeah, the question I have is, what would be the cost, then we cannot analyze, to have the police department and the EMS and fire department, in case of emergency, up for about a few hours, which would allow us to, if we have a problem with the general power, with the main feed, somebody cuts the main feed, how much is gonna cost us to make sure that we still have power in emergency, and then we can make a decision.
Yeah, I mean, we could certainly add battery modules to increase the runtime. This building also has analog POTS lines that will remain in operation even if you lost power.
The
in its
parts where you
entirety.
don't have the switch anymore.
Correct. You could still
So we
make
need a
inbound.
switch to get out.
You still have inbound and outbound calls. You just wouldn't have your phone system available.
Yeah, but parts line, yeah. For more important than the police is for us. For me, it's the police will be the most important one. To make sure that, you know. So, can we look at something and maybe you say, okay, for an hour or two, how much more it's going to cost,
Well,
so we know that the
hold on,
emergency.
Max.
Yes.
Not to give him direction, that goes to the council has to decide as a body whether we want to consider any of these changes. Okay, so we're getting the answers to your questions, and we can discuss this at the next work session and decide what we want, what if any changes or additions
But we have
want
to
make.
have the answers for that.
I'm sorry.
We have to have the answers.
Right.
So what somebody has to ask.
Right. I'm not suggesting you don't ask.
Okay, so
I'm suggesting you don't tell him to do anything.
Well,
Okay.
one of the things you have to keep in mind, our 911 is not here. Our 911 is in Paramus.
Right.
and 911 is a different story.
Well, that's
911
where
is
the
incoming
emergency
calls.
calls come from.
Those are incoming calls at the solution. We're talking about being able to be operational.
So I guess the next question is if we wanted to add to the length of time that we could operate without a generator and without power, what would it cost us? And your recommendation also as to whether you think that's money well spent.
Right.
And then we will, as a body, we'll discuss this and decide if we want to
To go
make
over
any
like
changes or
that.
additions to the
Yeah.
RFP.
Well,
Yeah, there's also a short life to batteries, so there's a lot of maintenance ongoing over the years. Every few years, you have to recycle batteries, so there's also
Yeah.
something to keep in mind.
Bob, didn't you have this discussion with the chief about if the lines went down, that there wouldn't be an issue?
I had this same discussion as the prior redundancy. It was the same discussion.
So it's not a concern.
They have backups on
There's
everything.
backup, there's
Yes.
way to call out, way to receive calls.
Yes, or they transfer to different surrounding towns, which they do now
Yeah.
currently. So there's
Okay, well,
other
our
methods.
councilman wasn't aware of that, you know, so hopefully he'll feel a little more comfortable.
Time frame for the schools, when you guys starting?
We're gonna be starting just about any moment now.
Okay, and
The
then,
plan is, we have to be operational come
September.
opening of school. So our plan is to finish everything by some point in August, so we can make the switch over and test it.
okay.
So that is basically our time frame.
And what's the borough's time frame then on top of that? Is it concurrent, or is it we wait till you guys are done over there and then we go?
I think it would be more concurrent than not.
Okay.
Might not be exactly concurrent, but the idea would be generally concurrent.
Whereas we're not in a super rush, whereas you guys would be?
Correct.
Okay.
and basically over the summer to be all
Yeah.
done, so.
And the other thing we can do is we can get the new system up because it's using a different wiring plant. So we can have the new system up while the old system continues to run.
Right, right.
So we can do some testing and everybody can get trained and familiar with it. So when we cut it over, there's less of a disruption.
And how, what's the word, intrusive is the wiring? Like phone lines, for example, and rewiring and things like that, is it?
I think there was minimal wiring included in the bid for the borough. I think it was a speculative number.
There's about
based-
15 or so locations, mainly for wall-mounted telephones that are here rewired.
Okay. So existing wires?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
That's good. Any other questions? Good. Thank you very much. We appreciate your time, and thank you for answering his questions. I think it's helpful to us.
Right. Jewel, did I answer all
Thank
your
you.
concerns? I didn't know
Yes.
about the time frame.
Yeah, we'll talk about the specifics, but
Okay.
yes, that was,
All right, very good.
you've got the general timeframe.
Yeah, as far as construct, but I didn't know as far as the process.
Right.
Will you put this on for discussion at the next work session, okay? And Max, maybe you can give her some assistance by putting some of your questions in writing for us
We'll
to
we'll
discuss.
have them by the end of the day tomorrow.
Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda
So,
is the Senior Services Committee.
Thank you. Thanks, Joel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Buddy, Jay, you're out on leave.
That's
Hi, Bob.
me again?
You again.
Okay. Proposed senior citizen day outline. So, at the meeting of the senior citizen, we had about last Monday, Peter was there for about half of that meeting. One of the things that the senior citizen committee was asking for is to have a senior citizen day whereby they're going to try to bring together the entire town to start the process of having a senior citizen friendly community. And in doing that, they wanted to have a presentation that will include the different social organizations like the Kiwanis, the Elks. They want to have the Chamber of Commerce to participate. They want to have the religious organization to participate, and who want to have the also the public to participate. And since this is a presentation that they would like to make to the community, they would like to make it during the day where most of the senior citizens will be able to come, and because in the evening they kind of don't like to travel so much. Part of the presentation is I talked to Gloria Lane, and probably if that is approved, I will put together the majority of the presentation, because we want to help the senior citizen group as much as we can, because sometimes presenting versus just and making a colorful presentation is different than just putting some.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
So the county does in every September in one of their big parks, they hold something called the senior picnic. About 900 seniors, a ton of vendors, healthcare vendors. They give out bags of whatever goodies. I think we could do, based on numbers, pick a park and just do a senior picnic.
That's I'm all for it. I'm not.
Did you get Gloria's email?
Yes, I did. Gloria.
The chair of the committee suggested that we hold off on this.
Exactly. I was going to bring it.
Okay.
To bring it up. No, the actual the subject is basically Tenafly as a senior citizen-friendly community, existing facilities and programs for senior center to show that we have whatever we want to create for them. Then we're going to have regarding the class and so on, the interaction between the senior citizens and the businesses, organizations, and so on. Now, after that will be some coffee and cake. Now, the date was scheduled originally requested to be the third week in May, the week before the schools are off, so people and all the organizations are here. Both of us got a letter from Gloria Lane, who was is the chairman, and said she's going to go on vacation, so she doesn't know if the presentation can be done, which means that the scheduled actual meeting is not firm. So what I'm asking for part of this one is that we approve that such a presentation is good. Once we firm up the date or so, we'll come back to you and say we would like to have it on a certain day or so, or if Gloria decides that it's going to be that, we'll do it. But this is kind of the framework of what they were looking to have, and then we can discuss on the date and stuff like that.
Well, I think the concept, nobody has a problem with the concept. But once again, Max, you're the liaison to the committee.
Yeah.
The committee is not prepared to do this yet. That's according to her email. I know she's on vacation,
Yeah.
but she also stated that it's a premature to do this now. So why don't we wait until the committee, not yourself, but the committee is prepared and committed to do this? Okay?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
They
So-
asked me to prepare that.
Okay,
Then
so I
Gloria
think
said,
we're all
yeah.
happy with the, I think the idea is a good one. We're still waiting for some sort of sense of what they propose for the bus. We're still waiting for a job description for the senior coordinator. All of these things should come before we have this open date, so that at this meeting, seniors can get a sense of what it's all about. So let's get those.
We have no disagreement on
So
that.
let's get those other things done first, and then
Yeah.
when we're prepared, and obviously, the summer is not a great time for this.
No.
So maybe this is something we can look forward to in the fall.
I don't disagree with any of what you said.
Did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just, are you meeting, because it's all a good idea and everything,
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, as a meeting at the senior center for the seniors,
No,
or
it
as
would be
a
a,
total council meeting?
the way that they laid it out first in the meeting is to be a meeting here in the council chamber, so we can have a lot of people and we can have some coffee and cake.
Well,
for
the
people.
mechanics room might be a good
Right.
place for
Or
it as well.
mechanics or whatever,
Okay.
they were not
Okay.
looking at, they were specifically don't wanna disturb the, but, and you can see, things are changing, and at that time, we're firm, let's do it third week before they go on, then
Sure.
they change, well, okay.
All right, so
I
we'll
have
wait.
one of the follow-up questions, Jewel, it's really to you. Regarding the bus and the scheduling, are you working with the senior committee in terms of helping them with that process, or how is that all playing out?
We did a survey.
Right.
We gathered a lot of information. It's actually very detailed.
Good.
And we've turned that all over to the committee, and they're reviewing it now.
So everyone's on the same page, there's no surprises?
We're heading in the
Okay,
right
good.
direction.
Good, good.
And
With
I
the
can
bus,
answer
hope
also
so.
more than that. The last meeting on Monday, the committee created a whole definition of what the bus will do, task who's going to be responsible, what will be so, and they will slowly bring it up to everything in there.
Good.
Good, okay.
Next is
Progress.
the additional funding request for COA Consortium. As you may imagine, if you read the newspapers, COA is kind of spinning their wheels and kicking up a lot of mud. And
And asking for money.
the end result is they're asking for, what is it, $2,000 more, Julie?
Correct.
Once again,
What was
they,
our initial, how much did we go for?
I think 1,500, right?
Yeah.
2,000.
2,000.
2000 before, 2000 again.
I would be very pleased if this is the last time they come to us for money, because this is not only is it a bottomless pit, but it's a never-ending process. I don't see at this particular point that the people that are running this, which is now in the courts, are any closer to some sort of decision that will impact Tenafly than they were months ago. And this is another thing that, no offense, works out well for the lawyers.
Okay, what is
Not for me.
disturbing in the same line is the fact that they have another $145,000 worth of bills for whatever, we don't know what that is about, and eConsult, another $163,000, which they didn't pay $138,000. They have another Carl Woodward bill for $49,000, $50,000, and basically, like, all of a sudden, another $200,000 more, and we don't know what those bills
Well,
are.
the only thing I can say that I feel strongly about this is that if it wasn't for this consortium, we would be paying an individual attorney to defend us,
Yeah.
and his bills would be well beyond ours, what we're paying for the share of the consortium. This consortium is representing us, and I believe, and Jewel, you're close to the scene, I believe they're representing us well. I mean, as best they can under the circumstances.
We have all the reports.
We know where the money is going,
Yeah.
and there's over 100 communities that are pitching into
Almost
this.
200.
Almost 200. So I know we are going to have a COA meeting. What is it, tomorrow?
It's
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Where we'll be brought up to date, and we will report back to the mayor and to the council. Yeah. Yes, Mark, and then Dan.
Yes, so, I mean, just to, Max, we have a good sense of, Burchell, and he had his stroke, and eConsult took it over, and Woodward covered for Burchell. So we have a pretty good understanding, but, I mean, your concerns are right that it's open-ended, but
Exactly.
it's 2,000 each time, and I think we're better off being in the consortium than not in the consortium.
No,
Wait, what was my question?
Oh, my WhatsApp
Jewel,
office
is this
if you want.
paid through COA funds?
Yes, it is.
Okay, go ahead then.
Is there a chance that we kind of have a finality on what the hell is gonna happen?
Well, that's
with all
an
this
easy
money?
question, no.
It's been going on about 18 years now.
Yeah, I know, it's right.
And the estimates.
They're saying they want us to make up
the.
the 18 years of housing,
Yeah.
the gap housing.
One guess is the state needs 200,000, the other guess is 1,500. It's up here and down here, two
No,
guesses.
I have no problem, I understand that 2,000 considering everything else is not a huge amount, it's just that, like the milking cow. Yeah.
Okay. And the good news is, though, that the money is taken out of our co-op fees,
Sure.
so it doesn't impact the taxpayers. Next item on the agenda is an amendment to ordinance 1605. We've talked about this numerous times. It's we're finishing the process, which will give us what is it, 6 spaces? Six spaces in the corner of the parking lot across from the Elks, which will be available for overnight parking by permit only. Those permits will be assigned only by the mayor and council. So if people have extraordinary circumstances and need those spaces, we can accommodate them. Those are spaces that are normally not even used during the day. Last but not least is the Hillsdale Avenue parking recommendation. Some requests were made to change the parking to eliminate 2 parking spaces on Hillside Avenue, and we have the letter from the chief with his recommendation that the spaces remain as they are. Any comments on any of that? Okay.
I went over there to check again because I saw the recommendation. And my question will be, what the chief is saying over here is, if you want to get out of the BP, and it's not a problem because the traffic is blocked and nobody can run you over. Because if there is a blocking over there going down the street westward, it's top of the line. But there's still a lot of traffic if you want to go out going into the new street. So it's not exactly what he's describing over here. My concern would be coming out of BP, of all the traffic that goes up and down over there, and you still block all the view for the traffic going to the new street.
All right. Well, we asked him for his opinion. If we could just go around the table and get a sense of, do you folks want to pursue this any further, or his recommendation is to leave it the way it is? Do you want to discuss this any further?
I mean, I have a tendency to want to go along with what the chief says. You know, especially we don't have any history of accidents there, and he's out there dealing with the traffic day to day. It kind of makes sense for him for his opinion to be the most important one.
Paul, Dan?
I agree with Mark.
Okay, let's move on. The administrator's report, please.
Sure. Have a link on your iPads. Our most important item tonight is the adoption of our 2016 municipal budget. And essentially, we've submitted documentation to confirm that our budget has been examined by the Division of Local Government Services under DCA, and that they have authorized our budget for adoption. And we're very fortunate because this morning DCA sent out an email advising communities that if you hadn't heard from them by today, you just have to wait and they'll be in touch with you. They're overwhelmed.
You're in trouble.
So
Hey, Steve, the early bird gets the worm.
exactly.
As a matter of fact, the presentation you have over there is very nice.
Thank you.
They're really nice, professionally made, and
Thank you. The next item, just for your information, just to let you know that the Hackensack University Medical Center will be conducting a community health resource fair at the Tenafly Senior Center. They try to go to different communities over the course of the year, and at this point it's our turn. And we attached the flyer for your review so you can see it's very detailed. When they do it, they always get a very good turnout. The date is June
23rd,
23rd.
from 12:30 to 3 p.m.
At the Tenafly Senior Center.
It's actually
Okay.
pretty good what they bring.
The next item of information is just an update on our 2016-2017 CDBG application. We applied for funds to resurface Grove Street, which is our only census tract, our only eligible census tract under community development. And it was approved. As you'll see, we applied for $100,000. We've been recommended to receive $81,000. We'll be able to make up the difference in from our capital budget balances. But I just want to note that a lot of applicants got 50%, sometimes even less than what they requested. So we actually did extremely well. We got over 3/4.
Would you explain, because what you mean by census tract, so the
Right.
members of the council understand?
Community
that?
Development Block Grant is not even though our program is administered by the county, because of our small size, we're not large enough to be an entitlement community, so we don't have an independent grant. But the program is, overall is administered by the feds out of the Department of Housing and Urban Development. So even though we are working through the county, we are actually responding and having to comply with federal rules, federal standards. And what they do is they identify what they consider low and moderate income census tracts based on the census data. And Tenafly has one of those census tracts.
One street.
One street.
So we're very fortunate.
Right. Just put a couple of photos in there for you to, if you're not familiar with the fact that we did have our new gazebo installed and our community garden. Can't see it in the dark, but our community garden has been installed out back. And
If you have a chance, check out
Yeah.
both. The gazebo's
Very
nice,
nice.
and
Yeah.
the fencing over here is
Right.
very interesting.
And the green team is moving ahead. We've been advertising in the on the message board and in the newsletter, and it was very effective. They've gotten several applications, and people are already submitting their application fees.
And that'll be in the newsletter as well, right?
Correct. As you were aware, we had a court matter involving our court code enforcement office, and just to let you know that was resolved amicably and in its entirety.
So he
And-
withdrew his complaint?
No, the judge dismissed the complaints for all parties.
What about the summons though?
There were
That was dismissed as well.
The probable cause, remember, the nature of that was a probable cause hearing, and
Yeah.
so the judge doesn't have to find probable cause, he could just say, I'm dismissing them all.
Okay.
That's all.
And then finally, over the weekend, you saw that the chamber had its annual, or spring street fair.
And a lot of foot traffic. It was a beautiful weekend, and it ended up being very well attended.
Okay, that's me.
Thank you. Under correspondence, we have two letters. One is from one of our better customers, the filming company that's filming up on Park Street. Hopefully, this will be their last request. They're looking to film, on Thursday, and 2 weeks later.
The 13th of
Well,
May.
they're looking for two things, permission to film and a later hour.
Till 8 o'clock, inside the house.
Yes.
So,
That's your rendering?
Yes.
What's that
due to
say?
the time frame and everything, the fact that this is more than their fourth request, does anybody have a comment or a problem with this, or give them okay?
Have any of the neighbors raised any concerns?
No, I've
Haven't
spoken to a
heard.
couple of people. I know the guy that lives right next door.
Yeah.
They didn't even know what was going on.
Oh, that's good.
All right, and I did manage to get a commitment. They're going to be filming the Borough Clerks of New Jersey there. So. And the other request is from Keller Williams to do something on the sidewalk, and they've done that once or twice before without any issues. Anybody have a problem with that?
No, it
Yeah.
always goes smoothly.
They're not doing the tent this year?
They're not doing the tent, and they're not taking any parking spaces. It's contained
Even
solely
better.
in the sidewalk.
Good point, Dan. Thank you.
So it's easier.
All right, does anybody have any questions on the resolutions? Then, I guess you'll read the.
I have a question on the
old business,
resolutions,
or-
not specifically for the resolution. Is last time when we had this repair and maintenance and the traffic signal, we ended up with a traffic signal with one vendor. which was supposed to be a hardship because they could impose the prices on us. This time, is there any chance that we can go through the surrounding towns, see who they work with and stuff like that, to try to get more than one vendor in the bidding for the lights? It's not regarding this resolution, but it's regarding the process.
Well, when you say the process, these things are widely advertised.
So they do go out to bid?
They go
Yeah,
out.
they do, yeah, they do, but we ended up with one vendor because something, it was a hardship for the town.
Well, no, I think we end up with one vendor because only one either submits a bid, because due to the nature of the equipment, I guess most of them aren't qualified or capable of doing the job. I don't know, but all we can do is go out to bid, and if we only get one bidder, we have the option of rejecting the bid and doing it again, and I guess our professionals have always have had the sense that to go ahead.
I don't think
So
they have a
we're
different outcome.
authorizing the bid,
The bid,
right,
yes.
so we have to see how many people bid.
Yeah,
And to
exactly.
reject bids is very specific, and it has to be either
Outside
there was a
budget.
problem with the specs, or it was over budget. Just receiving a sole response is not qualifying to look at public contracts law. to reject a bid.
So what I was saying is that we know that this is a very restrictive bid. We had one vendor respond.
Isn't it?
And maybe that requires a little more of an active type of, to go through all those surrounding towns and say, okay, who do you have, and maybe we should talk to them to send them the bid. I know it's not exactly just publicized.
We don't send anybody the bid.
Uh,
We put it out there, and everybody in their
What I'm
field
trying
knows.
to do is be more active than that.
You
Because
can't
we
do
You
that.
can't, you can't
You
target,
can't target people
specific,
like
vendors, you know, if they ask for the bid, we can send it to them.
You
But everyone
have-
has to be treated equally.
You have a process for bidding, for if you have an engineering job, you know exactly where to send the information so that every engineering firm looks at it and decides if they want to bid or not. More than that, you can't do. Unfortunately, we're kind of have our hands tied by the rules and regulations which preclude us doing something that may be perceived as favoritism. Calling somebody up, would you mind bidding? Well, you can't do that.
We know that our bids are picked up and noted by the commerce journals because they frequently follow up with us to find out what their outcome was.
Every firm in these particular fields knows where to go if they want work, and if they don't want work, we can't help them. So, okay, Bill, would you read the? Well, I'm sorry.
There's
We
an
have
old
two
business
other-
on,
We
yeah.
have two other items, but they were
Tony's not
presented by
here.
Tony.
Yeah, well, Tony's not here, but he did present us with the budget for the Northern Valley Chiefs Parade. I don't know that Tony is not coming, so maybe he will show up. If not, does anybody have any comments on that budget?
It's a very high number.
Well, we approved the number. We approved the bottom
Yeah.
line already.
He's just providing the
He's just
breakdown.
breaking it down as we asked him to do.
Well, what kind of food he's gonna get?
$4,000.
Lobster rolls.
Has to be.
Well, no. Apparently, we're feeding a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
You know, this is you'll have residents from throughout Northern Valley. Hundreds of people will come, and I don't know if this is just hot dogs and hamburgers. Probably not a heck of a lot more than that. You know, and that's
We got the band shell from the county for this event.
yes. I'm
Yes, it's
assuming
already
we
been
do
requested. We've got
The
the
band
receipt
shell
ready
is
to go.
always there every year.
And we've been trained.
And we've been trained.
And by the way, as members of the council, you're welcome and really should make a point of trying to be there and be up in the bandstand with all the other big time celebrities. And I mean, this isn't taking place for another month, so if
The parade,
yeah.
this is in October.
All right, so if you have
Yeah.
let's put this on for the next work session. Hopefully, we'll catch Tony at one of them. Okay. And this way, Max, if you want a further breakdown or any more
No, I'm
information.
okay.
All right, then forget it.
Yeah.
Forget it.
The only question is, are we gonna go now through all this old business for the good of them, all right now?
Yes. Well, for the testing of the water for lead for private schools, daycare centers. So that was, once again,
Tony.
Councilman Barzalato.
It was also requested by the Board of Health.
Right, and
He raised it.
who he?
Tony.
Tony raised
Yeah.
it.
It was also requested by the Board of Health, so.
But
All
there's
right,
no
well-
information.
No, we'll put it on the next work session.
Yeah.
Anything else?
For the good of the order, it's, you called me and we talked about the trees being cut on Magnolia.
I never learned my lesson.
Never learned a lesson. That's, sometimes that's how it is. Meantime, I got 3 complaints about that. We need to talk about that when, at the next session, when we're gonna have, Bob over there and stuff like
It's
that, we
already
need to talk
scheduled
about.
for May 3rd.
It's already scheduled.
Yeah, but, the schedule is right now is for the paving.
What?
The schedule that we have is for paving
You're
and stuff
talking
like
about
that.
planting?
No, we're gonna add
Since
the
Bob-
trees
Add,
as well.
exactly, that's why I
Yeah.
wanna say add the trees.
So it's gonna be, they're gonna be planted around May the 3rd.
No.
No,
No, no, no, no, no,
Oh,
no,
he
no,
wants
no.
to talk
We're
about
talking
it.
about,
We're gonna talk about it.
talk about that, yeah,
Okay.
no, they're gonna be planted tomorrow, that's what Bob told me.
Okay, May the
Must have been
3rd.
delirious on
There's nothing new.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Anything else? Max, anything
No.
else? Okay,
Ready.
so we're going, he's gonna read closed session, and then we're gonna go inside for our public meeting, and the closed session shouldn't take more than 5 minutes, so don't get discouraged, but we're gonna